Hi everyone, wherever you are, happy Monday and welcome to another episode of Backchat. I'm Amy, this is my partner Maggie.
Hello.
Together we're ThinkerThemer, and as usual we'll be running through our top 10 crowdfunding campaigns because they're not funded yet, that we're most excited about for the last fortnight.
Yeah.
So let's get straight into it this fortnight.
All right.
With our number 10, and our number 10 is the game called...
I guess this is it. That's it.
The name does not stick in my mind. I just went over that like 13 times.
Well, the game is I Guess This Is It. And I Guess This Is It is by Button Shy Games, who are very, very well known for creating amazing, very compact 18 card games that you can fit in your wallet or in a little wallet.
But this is their first foray into
RPG.
RPGs.
Yes.
Which is really exciting because it's going to be a whole new lineup of little games. And this is very much good timing because you have been getting more into narrative games.
I have been.
We have dabbled in a game of D&D.
Yes,
so
we had one session facilitated by your brother. Yes.
So let's talk about this game.
All right. So I Guess This Is It is a 2-player RPG where we find ourselves in that moment in time where a very, very close or strong relationship, or it could be any sort of relationship in the broader term, is coming to an end, and you're saying your final goodbye. So it could be lovers, it could be friends, it could be relatives, it could be work colleagues, whatever it is. And so the way the game plays is that you're going to be trying to say as much as you possibly can in that final moment without hurting each other's feelings, knowing that it's got to come to an end. The way it plays out is you've got this beautiful deck of cards. So the artwork on them is really, really stunning. And as you would decide initially what the situation is, so who your characters are and what the setup is. And as you're playing the cards will have a word that's almost like a prompt to guide, to help you unfold the story. And they also have symbols on the edges where you're going to be matching those symbols as you're kind of crafting the kind of little tableau that you're building. Those symbols will have different abilities, so sometimes it'll allow you to extend the game or take an extra action. And they also have almost like a flavor of the type of, like sometimes it's a wish or a memory, or they also kind of have their own prompt story-wise. If you're not able to match those symbols, then you're going to be speeding through the goodbye deck, which is going to be shortening the game. I couldn't even get through the trailer, and the trailer is very simple. I could not even get through the trailer without tearing up, and this is why I don't think I would be able to play this game, because it's like even if it's a ridiculous goodbye, I just get so emotional.
But it's interesting because they mean goodbye in such a broad sense. And when I watched the video as well, I was like, that it makes you think of like the worst types of goodbye. But then when they give you some examples, it's also like, your ex-business partner's negotiating a deal, or like you're in a band and someone wants to leave the band and pursue their solo career. So it's not always the worst, a dramatic kind of goodbye. But but the music that was playing in the video and talking about the things that would be left unsaid, it was
no. So
sad.
I don't think my heart could cope with this game. I love the concept, but I probably wouldn't be playing it just because it'd be so emotionally intense for me, even if it's a ridiculous premise that we are.
And in the game, it does require, there's no DM as such. The character, like the players are creating the story, and that's not really for me, which is why you'll see a lower rating for me. But I do think it's interesting what Button Shy are doing with this RPG series.
And also say for me, one of the things that I enjoyed about our one D&D session, so our very, very early foray into RPGs, is that I thought that I would have to be creating a lot more story than I did. I love the fact that the game master, the GM or the DM, was mostly doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and you're getting to just do more choices and whereas with this you are creating the story. So I don't tend to thrive on things where I'm having to improvise or create the narrative myself as I'm going along as much. So that's why it's also a bit of a lower rating for me.
One other thing that I really like is that this game is not a fantasy theme, and the next title is called The Family Dinner that they're bringing out, which is about a dysfunctional family sitting down to a meal, which I'm sure everybody can relate
We've
to
all been there.
in some way or another. So that sounds really funny and fun. The other thing is that if you don't want to buy the printed version of this game, you can print and play yourself at home for $3 US, which I think is really great. And, because they're just prompt for a role-playing game, it makes even more sense, I think, in this instance.
Absolutely. So that is our number 10. I guess this is it.
Our number 9 is Thunder Road Vendetta.
Yeah, this is a 2 to 4 player game that is a racing game. So this is taking place in a post-apocalyptic world where we have these... I don't know why they love to do this in post-apocalyptic. I guess there's nothing really left to lose. And so you might as well have a lethal race to the death for entertainment. So in this game, we're going to be kind of controlling a set of our cars that are going to be racing. And we're going to be able to obviously have some movement through these very perilous and hazardous roads, avoiding different bits and pieces, and then attacking any other rivals who might be within range. And then we also get to also call in a chopper for an air attack. It's very much like those cinematic, like Fast and the Furious or any kind of action movie race chase scene, or where you have cars exploding and things sort of happening all over the place. That's the kind of
like
world
Mad Max, kind of.
Yeah, like Mad Max as well. Yes, yes.
So this is a remake of a much older game. So they're bringing it back. It's got all new art. I think they've changed the mechanics slightly. But the way that the main thing that you're doing is you are controlling a small, medium, and large car or buggy or vehicle. And you're going to be doing that through the use of dice worker placement, kind of worker placement, but more allocating a dice pip value to each of those cars, which allows them to move. And what you're trying to do is, yes, avoid any obstacles. There's some interesting things that you get to do, like you get to roll the shoot dice, which allows you to then attack a car within range. And if you land on top of another vehicle, an opponent's vehicle, you get to roll some damage dice, and that pushes them into certain directions, which may end up pushing them into an obstacle. And this game has player elimination, so be very wary of that if you don't like player elimination, because to win the game you either have to be the first player to get to the end of the race, or to be the last woman, man, person standing.
Yeah, I like in this game how the road, as people are kind of, as the cars are moving, the road starts almost destroying at the end, and if you're the last car left behind, that car is lost. And then it's sort of creating this, I don't know what you call that, but yeah, when you have the last piece becomes the first piece, becomes the next bit of the road, and so that way you can kind of keep the map going. Yeah.
And the game is not really our style of game. I don't
racing
think...
games
the racing games and that kind of movement programming style game. But the game, I think, is quite well produced. The cars and the vehicles are really beautiful. I really like the artwork style,
me
actually.
Too. Yeah.
And I think it's really reasonably priced at $50 US. To get it to Australia is $30 Australian shipping. So that, of course, combined makes it kind of over $100 Australian ship, so we won't be backing this one, but definitely check it out if you're a fan of the original game, or if it's just something that you're into. So check that out. That is our number 9, Thunder Road Vendetta. Our number 8 is a roll and write called Dinosaur Exhibit. Now, in this game, you take on the role as a museum curator, and what you're trying to do is bring all of the best exhibits into your player area. And the way that you do this is you have a classic roll and write sheet, which you're going to be using pencil to scribble out boxes on. And the way that you're going to be doing that is by rolling 2 dice. You get to choose one of those dice, and then you have to leave the other one remaining for the rest of the group to use that as their symbol. And you're going to be crossing off your symbol on your sheet. And the idea is that you're trying to build up symbols such that they make polyomino shapes represented by the exhibits in the middle of the table, so that you can be the first to grab those exhibits and add them into your museum. At the end of the game, you're going to be getting points for the different exhibits that you have on your sheet, and ultimately you're trying to have the most prosperous museum.
The most points. So you can actually be granted the Spinosaurus. So there's like the Spinosaurus token, which represents the one holy grail of things that you want to be able to exhibit. I don't think you actually get to do anything with it, but that's the thing that you win if you manage to be the best at it. I really like how I really enjoy, obviously, polyomino tile style games or puzzle style games. I really, really enjoy. Roll and writes, probably polyomino is one of like that combo I really love. I really enjoyed this one, that the tile element. So that actual physical tile that you get to then use to cover up. The game does seem to be quite light. It's a lot on the lighter side. It's very like kid friendly, and also just like a roll and write intro friendly. Like a sort of, if someone's never really played anything like this before, it's going to be very easy for them to kind of get a sense of how to do this.
Yeah, so for us, it's probably too light, but definitely if you have kids, I feel like this is one of those kids or light games that actually feels like it will really come together in terms of like the mechanics and being interesting. The decision making is quite interesting. The race element is quite interesting. So all in all, I think it looks like a really well designed game that just happens to be a little too light for us to back. But check that out if you are interested. That is our number 8 dinosaur exhibit. Our number 7 is a game called Hand to Hand Wombat. Not combat. Wombat. And oh my goodness, the little wombats that are on the cover of this are so pretty cute. So cute. And an Australian animal, so you know, it has to be on our list. Yes. But no, this game is actually coming to you from the designer and makers of Exploding Kittens and Throw Burrito, 2 games that are not really our style of game, but we definitely own both of them. And the reason is that they play a very unique role. They are light party games that you can kind of, you know, get off the shelf when someone sees your collection of games and wants to play a game, but they're not really a gamer and they're not interested in a huge rule overhead.
Or any rule overhead, really.
They're not really interested in sitting down for an hour to learn to play one of our favorite games. So we have these games in our collection, and that, of course, drew me into this title. The appeal for this and the reason why it's our number 7 is being completely driven by me.
Entirely, yes.
So I gave it a higher rating. And I thought the premise of it was quite interesting, simple but interesting. It is a dexterity game where you are going to be building up these towers that are kind of in the shape of a pyramid, where there's bigger pieces that need to go on the bottom and smaller pieces that go on the top. You're going to be doing that cooperatively with blindfolds on or by covering your eyes. But the little hook is that there are secret roles, it's a deception game, and there is going to be a bad wombat in the mix. So everyone else thinks that they are trying to build this tower together, but there's going to be one person that once they have their eyes covered, they're going to be trying to remove pieces of the pyramid and also try and like swap pieces around so that it's not stacked correctly.
Wombat.
A bad wombat. And of course, like
troublemaker wombat.
Like all of these games, once you all have finished the round, it's on the good wombats to identify who the bad wombat is that made a mess of the towers. So I think the idea is really cute, really simple. Obviously, you could teach it in around 30 seconds. And I like what they do with their campaigns. So, and what I mean by that is that you get a lot of extras or value when you go in on their Kickstarters, because if you compare the price of the base game to what it eventually ends up being in retail, definitely you're going to be saving a lot of money if you buy it in retail. So if you're not that interested in it and you might pick it up in retail, you'll probably be able to get it for like $20. It's like almost a given because there'll be so many made of this game. But when you go in on Kickstarter, you do get these really unique elements. Like for Throw Burrito, we have a whole other waterproof inflatable burrito set. With Exploding Kittens, there were also a whole heap of extra stuff in the Kickstarter. And what I am keeping an eye on with this campaign is what else is going to be added that will make it compelling. At the moment, if you go in on the Kickstarter as opposed to the retail version, so you pay $40 instead of the $22 for the retail edition US, you get a timer, like a buzzer timer, which I always appreciate. I really don't like getting my phone out and using it as a timer generally in games. And you also get these cute blindfolds that are like 2 paws covering their eyes. I don't know why it's wombats, but you know, wombats, I guess.
Well, as a themer, I was like, what's the connection between wombats and building towers? And so I actually did a bit of digging to see, like, is there a connection? And the closest link that I could make is because wombats, a fun fact about wombats is that their poop is square or cube.
Has
like
flat edges.
It's more like a cube than it is round. And so one of the theories, which is apparently a misconception, is that the reason for that is because they use it to stack it and kind of like claim territory, which National Geographic was like, no, it's not a real thing.
Building a wall up around
them.
them.
Yeah. And so, but that's the closest that I could get to a link in terms of like, why are we building towers with this? I know that like for me, this is anything that's sort of fun, like that, sort of like the light fun games. When I did my player profile, I had zero fun. Like fun is not something that comes into the equation, apparently, for me when it comes to the board gaming hobby. I'm like, no fun. I'm in for the aesthetics. I'm in for discovery and exploration. 2% cooperation. No fun, zero fun. So it's the kind of games that I would play like once and then be like, okay, I'm sort of done with this. Yes, it's, you kind of have a laugh and whatever.
Yeah, they don't have lasting power. We all agree on that. That's fine. Yeah. But I will be keeping an eye on it. I haven't backed it yet, but that is our number 7 hand-to-hand wombat.
Our number 6 is a game called Last Resort. In Last Resort, we are managing a resort in space, which sounded like such an incredible thing at the time. We're like, we need to get in on this, space travel resort business. But then what it's not as obvious from the outside is that running a resort in space, it can be a little bit tricky. Can be malfunctions, things can start to fall apart. And, when you're in space, things can get very tense. So in this game, we're going to be managing our own resort. Ultimately, what we want to do is be able to be the one with the most money, because there are competing resorts nearby. And if we have the most money, apparently we're going to be able to score a permanent job.
I like that. Not only do you decide to open a space resort, but you decide to open it next to other space resorts.
Clearly,
out of all of space.
This sounds like it was a bit of a scam. Like one of those, like it was a trend and then all these things popped up and it's like, it's a great idea, get on it. And then, we're all kind of like jumping on and going, oh, now there's all this competition and also your resort is falling apart. So what you're going to be doing is obviously you as a resort, you need to build up your attractions and attract those visitors. So all those people that are going to be flying in to experience things, and then obviously as you're checking them out, you're getting to cash in on their stay. One of the things that I enjoy about this game is that the way it plays, it's got that simultaneous action, which in theory I usually really like because it means that it shortens the time of play. You're not kind of waiting for everybody else's turn. But in this one, unfortunately, if you do pick the same action as somebody else, that's what's going to trigger those malfunction tokens, which are going to busy up or get in the way of the spaces that you have in your resort to build up.
Yeah, when you run the same ad, if you like, thematically.
Yes, good one, babe. I'm glad that you brought that in. Because, awkward, it's like, you can't be attracting people to the competition. It's just like, we're canceling each other out. Like, why are we running the same ads? And so the other thing that I really love is about that is you're going to be building in these very cute and like nice flavor text type buildings that, all the different attractions and things that you can have in your resort. But also they have specific types of visitors that are going to be attracted to those types of adventures. Attractions. Yeah.
Your hotel rooms. I'm not sure. My rating for this one was a little bit lower just because I'm not a huge fan of simultaneous play. I'm not sure. I'm like playing more and more games where I'm starting to get a feel for that. But, I'm soul searching because I think it means something to do with I want everyone to pay attention to my turn on my turn.
This has been a recurring theme. Yes. I'm almost become aware of this.
I also like watching other people's turn to make sure that they don't cheat. No, I'm joking. Just because I'm intrigued by different strategies.
Sure, and
I really do like engaging with people over gaming. And when you're all playing simultaneously, you get less of that engagement. So for me, it's a little bit lower. It's also, the publisher is Brain Crack Games. And they published Venice, and Venice happens to be one of the games that I was most disappointed with in terms of its production quality. So for me, I'm a little bit scarred by that, honestly, when I see that it's by them. But I hopefully, from all the content that's on the Kickstarter page, everything looks really nice. So hopefully if you get in on this, it will be great in terms of production quality. I also think the price is very reasonably priced. It's $34 US, and the shipping is only $10 to Australia. So hopefully that holds true because that seems almost too good to be true. Like that is very, very cheap.
Yeah.
But that is our number 6, Last Resort. Number 5 is a game that we covered in Small Talk called Hens. And so if you want more information about the gameplay, more detailed overview, click on the link, which I'll add somewhere up here. And but to summarize, Hens is a card placement game where you are trying to draft a 6x3 grid of hens into your chicken coop.
Yeah.
And the way that you're going to be placing them down is really important because you've got different suits or different colors of hens, and they also have numbers, and there are rules in terms of the placement in that it doesn't matter if you put the same color next to each other, but if it's an alternate color, it needs to be +1 or -1 from the card next to it, which makes for a very quite crunchy puzzle in terms of how am I going to fill out this 6x3 grid in a way that stops me from attracting those other cards, which is when you turn them over and then they're worth negative points at the end of the game. The thing that I thought was most interesting about this game is the card drafting, because you discard cards from your hand into a discard pile, but the other players are allowed to draft cards from your discard pile, which means that even though you've got limited space in your hand and you really don't want that card, that's the exact card that Maggie's waiting for. And do I really want to put it out in my discard pile so she can pick it up and get all of these points? I also really like that there's a bit of variability in the game because you add in a special objective or 2 special objectives that you can try and achieve by the end of the game for extra victory points. And it's just a really nice, easy kind of
it's pretty relaxed and pleasant experience. I like another element that it has is halfway through the game, you have a blue rooster that you have to commit to a set of your hens, and that needs to be the color or the suit that is your second largest. So if it ends up overtaking and becoming your first largest, then you end up not being able to score it. So essentially being able to plan that well means that you can score your largest group and then also this kind of like rooster group.
The second largest group, because otherwise at the end of the game you really only get to score your highest group. So that makes it really interesting in terms of like what you are aiming for, what you're giving other people, and just a really nice solid filler. Getting the game to Australia is quite expensive. In fact, the shipping is more expensive than the game itself, unfortunately. But they do offer a print and play option as well. And it should be pretty easy to fashion this game together if you're into kind of making print and play.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
But that is our number 5, Hens.
Our number 4 is a game called Seas of Havoc. In Seas of Havoc, this is a 1 to 5 player naval skirmish game where we're going to be playing as pirates, sailing our ships after the most infamy that we can possibly get. And the way we get infamy is by shooting down or successfully hitting with our cannons our rival pirates. So in this game, we're going to be sailing our ships, collecting shipwreck, and trying to position ourselves in such a way that we can actually fire our cannons at the opposing sailors.
Now, the way that this game actually works mechanically is an interesting set of mechanics. It's got some deck building in there, it's got hand management and worker placement all in a game. And these are all things that we do enjoy. I watched Shay from Rado Runs Through play through, and one thing that he said that was quite interesting is that the deck building component doesn't really have such highs and lows, like all of the cards, and there's no super powerful cards. But it is interesting the way it all comes together, and that you've got these cards that then allow you your movement on the grid-like board. So you need to be able to draft these cards, you need to get resources using the worker placement, and then you are basically going to be trying to use these cards optimally in the right order, using kind of a hand management process to then move your ship and destroy your opponents. And it's really the last element of that I personally, makes it not higher in my ranking, as in like the moving around the grid, it's kind of almost like a programming effect. That's not one of my favorite mechanics, because I don't know why. I think it's just because it's always a little bit like, one step at a time, like, it's very, I don't know, it takes a while to play out. And so for that reason, it's a little bit lower, even though I do really like the worker placement element and the deck building element.
There's a lot of asymmetry as well in it. So both the captain or kind of like your pirate captain deck, as well as the individual ship deck, they're quite unique. So every combination that you do, you're going to end up with a unique sort of deck. So that'll give it a lot of replayability potentially as well.
But this game is really expensive. So you really have to be sure that this is a game for you. So do go and watch some videos. It's $89 US, I believe, for the base version. And then $126, I think, for the more deluxe version. And the deluxe version comes with these 2 treasure chests that are so awesome that you put together that are made out of wood. And also it comes with coins as well and some more gameplay expansion type content. And most people are going in at that option. So obviously people who are really into the game want to get that really deluxeified version, which makes sense. But at that price point, and just given that we were a bit lukewarm on it, we won't be backing this one. But it is our number 4.
Seas of Havoc.
Now, speaking of expensive games, our number 3 is a deluxe edition of an older game. It is La Granja, or The Farm.
Yes, so in La Granja, we are in the island of Majorca and we are farm owners. Yeah, so we've got a beautiful farm. And so like any farm owner, we're going to be trying to get victory points. That's like what they teach you in farm school, isn't it? Like, get victory points. And we're going to be doing that through obviously producing all sorts of different goods, delivering those goods, harvesting crops, hiring helpers, breeding pigs. What else? Using our donkeys to do deliveries, all sorts of different things.
Yeah, so we do own the original of this game. And it's a game that we quite enjoy. Like, we like it enough to keep it in our collection. But it's not a game that gets a lot of table time. Usually we find that there's a game that we want to pull out instead of La Granja. But it is kind of a cool game in that it has some really interesting multi-use cards. It's probably one of my favorite elements of it. The cards that you're collecting, they can be used as the helpers that are going to give you some abilities throughout the game, or they can be used to extend or give you more options for your farm. So you can either use them on the right hand side of your board, the left, at the bottom, or at the top as a way to make additional deliveries as well. And so it's just, there's a lot that you can do with the cards, and then the interaction between the way that the middle board plays out, because there's all these race elements where you're going to be using dice drafting, or you're going to be basically dice drafting to take certain actions as dictated by the pips on the die that you select. But then also there's these areas on the board where you're going to be wanting to deliver goods to in order to race your opponents to get special tile abilities in the order that you want to gain them. And then I really like the tension with the donkeys. So the donkeys, you get given these tiles that you need to play 1 per turn, and across like a round of the game you're going to end up using all of them, and you need to work out which order you want to play them, because the more donkeys the tiles have on them, then the more actions or deliveries you can make, whereas the more hats that they have on them, the more siesta track movement you get to take, which dictates turn order, and turn order changes before the deliveries are made. So it's a really interesting, nice little tension there. However, because it's a game that doesn't get a lot of table time for us, the entry point, I believe it's $89 US, is quite high, especially when you translate that into, 166 Australian dollars delivered. That is very expensive. But what I found really interesting about this campaign is that they have brought in some other designers, which is really cool.
New modules brought in.
So there's some new modules. Still not enough to get me back into backing this game, because we just don't enjoy the core of it enough. Like, we enjoy it, but it's not like I need to have this really expensive version of it. And then one of the most outrageous things is the $169 La Granja version of this game. So an option in the campaign is to purchase a giant edition of the game. And I did some work for you to show you a bit of scale. So we have a regular kind of deluxe board. It's fairly square board, and it is square board, and it sits in the center of all the players. If you get the regular version, that is a 56 centimeter by 56 centimeter grid. If you get La Granja version, it looks something like this. I had some wrapping paper on her hand. This is the middle board.
Oh my goodness, this is going to be... Wow, that is a lot.
That is a lot. My question is, who has a table this big And then if you can find a table that big,
It's going to be very loud on the mic.
Also
Apologies for that.
need to be able to fit a player board each of this size, which is almost the size of a board game. So you need to be able to fit.
I feel like this is now a game that we're playing on the floor and we're actually stepping in and stepping through the actions. So instead of it being a,
It's not a floor game though. This is not like, it's a very interesting.
Over here.
You know when you see giant versions of games and they're like King of Tokyo or those games where it's like big standees and it's really cool and physical. That's not this game. There's still cards and
Are the cards normal?
I think the cards are slightly bigger. The dice are also a bit jumbo, but it just does not make sense to me. I think, though, novelty-wise, it would be really cool, and I would love to see it in person.
I think
love to see it on a big
at a
table.
con, or like if you have a big sort of event like that.
But does it need to be big? Absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely not. But if you are backing that ginormous version, please tell us what is the occasion for the giant version? Where are you going to play it? Where? Like what table space? Really interested to hear.
Yeah.
But anyway, that is our number 3. Sorry about all the noise.
That would have been a lot.
Our number 2 is a game called Jiangnan Life of Gentry.
Yes, in this game we are playing as artists in the district of Jiangnan, and what we're going to be doing is we're trying to be the most create the most majestic masterpiece, so essentially be the most renowned artist in this area. And I love that it's got these different the types of art are things like opera or drama, calligraphy and painting, I believe. And just like any artist, you're going to be going through the markets and immersing yourself into the world and the community to get inspiration, spot the trends, and then make sure that your art is sort of inspired by all of those things.
Yeah, and so in this game you need to go out and collect resources and do different things in the game. There's a bit of area control, but the main draw card for me, and I think the thing that's most interesting, is the way that the bag building actually works. So you're going to be making an action cue above your player board that is going to move to the right one spot throughout the rounds of the game. And as it does, you basically have to choose one and activate its action if you want to use it for its action ability. But the one on the rightmost is going to drop off and basically be discarded in order to give you a one-off benefit or resources or whatever the case may be. And that's kind of interesting because it's like, do you want to leave that chit there so that it reaches the end and is going to give you the benefit, or do you want to use it for the action in order to get what you need done around Jiangnan? So I really like that tension and the fact that you can then go out and upgrade all of the chits that are going into the bag, of course, so that then when you pull them out, you've got more and more powerful things happening as the game progresses.
Definitely feels like there's going to be that sense of evolution and things are going to be that momentum as the game evolves. I also love that it's got a stress track to kind of keep, because again, like that's one of those things that I think every artist would experience, the stress of being an artist and all the things that are happening and all the commitments that you've made. And it's not an easy life. It's a calling, I think, to be an artist. But yeah, I love that they've included that in there.
Yeah, and then there's also boats that are traveling through the river, and it just feels like there's a lot of push and pull in terms of the tension around what you need to get done, the stress managing that as well, and just all of the different elements in the kind of worker placement style board. And so it was a little hard, honestly, from the campaign to get a sense of how it played out. Had to go and watch some videos for that. But yeah, I have heard really good things about this game. I'm not quite at the point of backing it. There's a lot of different options in terms of upgrades. Well, there's a deluxe edition, and one thing I really love about the deluxe edition is that it adds in these boats, so the physical kind of boats that travel along the board, which are super cool. But I really wish that the upgrade had been about the chits that are going into the bag building, because the physicality of that, like that, you know, instead of having pieces of cardboard, which aren't always nice to draw out of a bag, just having like something more solid, because it feels like the core of the game. And so why not make that the more deluxe component? So for this game, I think I can wait till retail. I really do want to try it, but I think, you know, being responsible as I am, that I think I don't need to back this one necessarily.
I watched the Rado playthrough of it, and then he was talking about how Jen, his wife, who is a glass artist, was feeling how thematic the game was. Like, she was actually going, this is I do feel like this, like, as an artist. And so that actually got me even more intrigued about it, because it's like a lot of the time, you know, we might kind of look at it and it's like, this is not thematic at all. And it's like, but then if the person that actually does that role is like, this is exactly what it's like, and it's like, then you know there's something in there. So that's the bit that intrigued me, I think, the most.
So that is our number 2, Jiangnan, Life of Gentry. And our number 1 game has finally broken the drought of Amy's backing for 2022. It is the first back of 2010 and 22. And can I add, it is February. So I feel like I did a great job of holding out.
Fair.
But a game that I am backing is Yokai Septet. And this game is a trick-taking game. We have both really enjoyed trick-taking games lately. There seems to be more and more of them. I really like that there's also been a lot coming out of Asia, and so there's lots of different twists on trick-taking. This one is a team-based trick-taking game, so that part of it reminds me a little bit of one of our favorites, which is Teach You. But you're going to be playing this one in groups of 3 or 4, and there are 7 sets in this game, or 7 suits, I should say. And the interesting thing about these suits is they all have different runs of numbers. So they will be from 1 to 7 or 2 to 8. And the thing that they have in common, though, is that they all have a 7 in them. And what you're trying to do in this game is collect 4 7s. So your team needs to collect 4 7s to win the game, and to get them you need to win the trick where a 7 is present. However, there's an interesting tension that if you win 7 tricks and you haven't won the 4 7s, you automatically lose the game. So there's this interesting, like, making people kind of push themselves too far, win too many tricks. So there's a little bit of like, sometimes we want to win, sometimes we want to force you to win. I really like that in trick-taking games. And I just think this will be really easy to teach. Like, it doesn't seem very difficult to grasp the concept of it. But it was lower in our ratings before we actually watched some videos on the campaign, which were our friends Monique and Naveen from Before You Play, who have it in their top 10 games they would never get rid of.
And they featured it a couple of times,
and also in their recent top 100, it was quite highly ranked by Naveen in particular, who was gushing about this and rated it slightly higher than the crew, and that had us certainly intrigued.
That's what I think. I think definitely for me is what made me look at the game more in depth, because otherwise it would have been something that's like, oh yeah, trick taking in teams, that kind of feels like Teach You. From looking at the page at a glance, I couldn't really see how it would be so different, but then looking at it more, I go, oh yeah, I can see how that would be fun. That whole thing of winning 7 and then going, no, like we won 1 too many, and we haven't managed to get like enough of those, like the 4 with the 7s in them. So I think like that is quite cool.
Which reminds me a bit of Jekyll versus Hyde, which is a 2-player trick-taking game that we've been enjoying, where you're trying to force the other person to like win too many tricks. So I think it'll be a really fun one. It is harder when it's 3 or 4 player to get it to the table, obviously. Same with Teach You, is like you never quite have the exact number of players that you want. But I just think that, you know, it's fairly well priced, $17 US, $8 shipping to Australia, so not too bad. And this is the 2nd edition. It was really hard to get after the fact. Last time it was on Kickstarter, so for that reason the FOMO got me. I am backing this one. First back of 2022, our number 1, Yokai Septet. So that's it for our top 10 for this fortnight. If you enjoyed this top 10, please like and subscribe to the channel, closing in on 10,000. Will we get there before we go to Vegas? Who knows?
Ooh, yes.
But thank you so much for tuning in each and every Monday. It really means the world to us. And even if we're slow on the comments at the moment, we are reading each and every one of them. So please let us know what you're backing in the comments below, and we'll get back to you shortly. And we'll be back with more board game reviews soon. But otherwise, bye for now.
Bye.